What the fuck is that noise? What is he doing? In there. Ooh. What an interesting song to open up the album with, man. Who knew what instruments he was playing? Was he banging on drawers? Wait until the middle of the episode to find out. The song is called Big in Japan. It's by Tom Waits of his 1999 album, Mule Variations. It's also number 416 out of 500 on the Spotify Ridge, the 500 with me. What's up? I'm the King Cadoodle. Fleece Army, how are you guys doing, my little doogly spooglies? I want you guys to do me a favor this week. If you're not listening to this podcast on Spotify, I want you to stop however you're listening to it and put it on Spotify. Listen to the 500 on Spotify. Hook a brother up. Because I love you guys. And it's a great platform. Dude, we had a wang zookie of a record this week. First time I've ever fully dipped into Tom Waits. This is a Dougal episode, y'all. You want to know why? Because my guest is the one and only Chris Sullivan. You know Chris from playing Toby on like the biggest show on television, the most cried to show on NBC, This Is Us. If you don't know him from This Is Us, maybe you saw him in The Nick, maybe you saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, maybe you heard his band Joseph the Spouse. This guy bleeds Tom Waits. Loves him more than anything in the world. And it was a pleasure to sit down and talk to this gentleman. Rate and review and subscribe to the 500 on Spotify. Follow me at Josh Adam Myers on all social media. Email the podcast at 500podcast@gmail.com. Follow our Facebook group, The 500 Podcast with Jam. And we have a fan page, The 500 Podcast, run by Crazy Evan. And for all things 500, go to our website, the500podcast.com. Well, y'all, nothing left to say. Tom, you want to introduce this? Of course, I'd like to introduce it. Here we go with number 416 out of 500 with Mule Variations by me, Tom Waits. Look back just to come on, Jim. Oh, you got to. Chris Sullivan. Oh, it's Chris Sullivan.
Josh Myers.
What
always.
is Chris Sullivan doing? You don't even have to actually make words. You literally just have to make like guttural noises. It's like that sounds exactly.
He's always under the stairs, auditioning for Nickelodeon shows.
I'm a big fan of Pringles. What about you? What are your favorite?
He's always spending a lot of time at home. Can't go outside. Nowhere to roam.
There's something really like awesome about just talking to yourself in the Tom Waits voice. Do you know what I mean? Like, since I've dug into this record, I've just been like, you know what? I think I am going to go to Chick-fil-A. And it's like, oh, that's my inner Josh. That'd be nice if my inner Josh is Tom Waitsy.
That's what this whole record is for me, is that inner monologue.
Well, you know what's funny, I'm saying this to all the listeners, the Fleece Army, is that we were going to record this like 5 months ago because you're so busy, and we wanted to make sure we could do it because you were like, dude, I got to do this record. I'm a Tom fan. And then, of course, the world was, trust me, dude, if there was any reason that I think we wouldn't have gotten in the same room together, infectious disease would have been the thing that great, did it. Man. So you're a huge Tom Waits fan.
Huge. When I was, I want to say 12 or 13, I had a small 10-inch television in my bedroom. And,
Not the thing that I thought you were about to say was 10 inches. I'm not going to lie.
I had like this little tiny black and white TV with the clicky knobs on the side and bunny rabbit antenna. And I got 3 channels, and one of them was PBS. And it was like 9 o'clock, and I clicked over, and there was this man sitting at a piano that was sitting in the middle of a 1950s gas station.
He used to turn a gunmetal blue, and it was scrawled out across the shoulders of this dying little town.
And he was smoking a cigarette and singing about prostitutes and love and despair. And I stood about 3 inches from the screen for an hour trying to figure out what I was watching. My like 12 or 13-year-old mind was being blown, and it was some Austin City Limits performance from like late 70s, early 80s. Maybe it was later. I don't even know. I know this, that I spent years searching on the internet trying to figure out who this was, what it was, and it was Tom Waits doing this performance, and I can remember it to this day, the feeling of like the uncomfortable, dark, like cozy feeling that viewing him for the first time gave me.
How old are you when you said this? This is like...
Like 12 or 13, so it was like 1993 or 94.
And you were drawn to this at that early. Like I'm saying, if Tom Waits would have come into my life around that age, I just think I would have dismissed it. But I never saw him, though. You know what I mean? So that's a whole different thing.
Well, the visualization of seeing this character, I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never seen anything like him. And I'd already been exposed to music outside that I grew up, my favorite musician of all time was one of the other records that I was telling my PR person I want to talk about was any John Prine record. You know, John Prine was my favorite artist, and at 12 or 13, there's no reason for that.
What the fuck is going on in your life at 12 and 13 that you're digging into like the heaviest shit?
My dad loved it, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand. You know, there's a hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes.
Yeah.
I was like trying to figure out, visualizing that as a kid, like a piggy bank, like a slot, like you stuck coins in. Like I didn't understand. But anyway, so the heavy stuff, I don't know, it spoke to me, and I just had never seen anything like it. So when I clicked over, and I was just, I mean, the special ends with him smoking he opens an umbrella under a street lamp that's on stage, and he's smoking a cigarette, and all of the smoke is coming out from underneath the umbrella into the light of the. I was in love. And it took me years to figure out who it was, because at the end of the show, they didn't say. And I was like, who is that? What is this?
They were like, give it up for, you guys know who he is. We don't even have to. He's a legend.
I think it cut to commercial. It was like late night on PBS, and it was like, he was just like, and I never saw her again. And it like faded out. It was like, and honestly, one of the first records where I had like a visceral memory of that was when I came across Mule Variations, the album we're talking about.
Really?
Yeah. Where I was like, this is the guy.
So wait, so when did that come back into your life? When did Tom get reintroduced then?
I mean, college. So it was a good 5, 6, 7 years later that I started really digging in to Tom. And then by that point, you know, I had seen him start popping up in films here and there, in any of the
Bram Stoker's.
Yeah, Bram Stoker's.
That was literally before this record, and like occasionally I'd go into this really hip clothing store that plays a lot of Tom Waits. Like like I said before we went on the air, like if people that listen to Tom Waits dress like Mumford and Sons, smell like cigarettes and patchouli. Yeah. They've got like 45 Johnny Depp bracelets on. They dance like gypsies, you know what I mean? They're just like, it's like, this is the shit that fucking all my cool acting friends, like, this is the shit that, that Michael Raymond James, James Harvey Ward, all the guys, Jason
all
Momoa,
the three
namers guys. But this is some of the hippest fucking rock and roll I might have ever heard in my life. So to be 12 years old and to be able to identify not just the imagery, but the music and be like, this is the shit right here. And it's just funny that because in 1994, there's no fucking internet, so you have no idea. So how did it come back? So you said you're in college. How did it just, somebody was playing it or?
What year did this come out? This
came out April 16th, 1999.
1999. So I graduated high school in 98. And so I probably heard this in the year 2000, probably as I was entering the second half of my college time. And it was definitely Filipino box spring hog coming out of my dorm room as I was approaching it, and it was my roommate playing it. And I was like, who is this? Tom Waits. Okay, interesting. Tom Waits. And we would listen to this record over and over and over again. And then it slowly started to come back to me as I listened to his voice. I was like, wait a minute. This is that guy I was watching. This is that guy I was watching. And then I started getting back into the stuff that came before this, and then have just been a fan ever since.
Have you seen him live?
I've never seen him live. There's, oddly enough, the people who I love the most outside of John Prine, I haven't seen live. I don't. I've been disappointed by live shows before, and there's something of it's almost like you never want to meet your heroes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like the music for me is so viscerally attached to times in my life, moments in my life, people in my life, that I get protective over a certain song. Like I don't want to hear a song in a commercial. I don't want to hear the song that I love in a movie that makes me think of the song in a different way, because I need to preserve the way in time.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's exactly like me. But what if you met Tom Waits and he was like, "So good to finally meet you, Chris. I'm a huge fan of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
That would be
way
the end
better
of it.
than the first one."
That would be the end of it. That would be the end. I got to actually meet and spend some time with John Prine a few months ago before he passed, and he and his wife invited my wife and I. We spent New Year's Eve at the Grand Ole Opry watching him perform, and it would be the same. It would be the same thing, except Tom Waits holds more of a mythical quality for me. John Prine has felt like my brother, has felt like my father my whole life. Tom Waits feels like the darkest but most like loving part of myself. Like it's, I don't know, there's a real, he's a romantic idea. Tom Waits is a romantic idea. Like, cause you can't, every actor wants to be a rock star, right? Every 100%.
Yep.
I want to be Tom Waits. Like, I don't want to be a rock star. I want to be Tom Waits. But I understand that entails a huge amount of self-destructive behavior. Living, you don't just dress up like Tom Waits and go perform. You live that life. And there's just nobody like him. He is 100% singular. You can't say there's just nobody like him.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, I only knew of him by name and by the image. Like he's like that cool rock photographer, that photo that's iconic, like a Danny Clinch photo. You see someone like Tom Waits, like sitting in like the back of a barn with the shirt that looks like it was woven by the Pilgrims. Yeah. And he's just cool. But and for me, this is really the first real record of his, if not, I don't want to even say first time I've listened to any of his songs at all, because I know they've been playing in the background, but this is the first one I actually dug into. And the same feelings that you had at 12, I had now at 40, where it was like, why hasn't he gotten into my life sooner? But also, I think sometimes with music, they come in at the right times. And I think if I said, if I would have heard it before, I don't think I would have done it. But there's something magical. There's something cool about him. There's something raw. It's like his lyrics and the music. It almost feels like he did this album in a barn, and he kind of did.
He kind of did, yeah. It's in Northern California, I think, right? The barn, a buddy of mine lives up outside of Napa, and he was like, that barn where Mule Variations was recorded, it's still there. It's a studio. I mean, it's a room.
Prairie Sun Recording Studios in Cotati, California.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that place.
And on top of that, this guy, I think this is one of, if not the very first record that he made of original material after getting sober. And there are very few artists who, as they get older, get better. And if we were to take his records from Mule Variations to Bad As Me, the most current record, I am of the opinion that the most current record is the best record he's ever made. Like, it's astounding that he is the age he is. He actually got sober, and his music got better, which is historically generally not true for whatever reason.
It's funny that you're saying that, because anytime I thought of the idea of Tom Waits before I really knew anything about him or knew his music, I just assumed he was like a drunk. He's just got that like vagabond,
sure.
Even like you said, I've never honestly watched a live performance, but I could just see him like by the piano, like slurring and being like a very like kind of like the Ray Charles kind of.
Yeah, he's absolutely. He's like a psychotic Bruce Springsteen mashed up with James Brown and Ray Charles. Absolutely.
That might work at a fair as the guy that like runs one of those rides. He's like, all right, y'all want to go faster? Who wants to go faster? Yeah, and they're playing like Papa Roach in the background. Like, who wants to go faster? This is my life rhythm. All right, well let's find out a little bit about what got us to this record, because this is actually a pretty interesting story. So, like I said, the album came out April 16th, 1999, and this is his 12th record. Tom was born in Pomona, California on December 7th. In 1949, grew up in a middle-class suburb of San Diego.
He frequently, in one of his interviews, he says, my father was an exhaust manifold and my mother was a tree. On television, he said that. Yeah.
That's incredible. All right. His parents got divorced when he was 10. So he's inspired as a young kid by Ray Charles, Wilson Pickett, James Brown, and was obsessed with Bob Dylan. In high school, he played in bands before dropping out in 1968. And unlike the hippie contemporaries, Waits was infatuated with the 50s beat generation poets, writers, and jazz musicians like Ginsberg, Kerouac, Burroughs, Lord Buckley, and Louis Armstrong. He began hitting the San Diego folk music circuit as a teen in the late 60s and early 70s before moving to Los Angeles in 72 to be a songwriter. And in LA, he signed with David Geffens and Elliot Roberts' Asylum Records and proceeded to have little critical and no commercial success with his first album, Closing Time, until the Eagles recorded that album's Old 55. He made 6 more records for Asylum, built his critical and cult following, toured a lot, started acting, got into a relationship romantically and musically with, do you know who this is? Do you know what I'm about to say?
Oh, yeah.
BM, baby. Bette motherfucking Midler.
Yeah.
But I was like,
what
Bill
a duo.
Murray.
Bill Murray. Would not be surprising.
And so he hooks up with Bette Midler and Ricky Lee Jones before being asked to create the soundtrack to Francis Ford Coppola's 1982 film, One from the Heart. It was on that film that Waits met his future wife, collaborator, manager, muse, Kathleen Brennan, who was an assistant story editor. So I actually wanted to ask you this because, like you said, rock stars want to be comics. No, that's the goddamn Comedy Jam catchphrase. No, actors want to be rock stars. Everybody wants to be a rock star, and everybody kind of wants to be an actor as well.
Yeah.
So, but actors aren't normally viewed as collaborators. But you're constantly working with people toward the greatest result. What's been your greatest collaboration?
Wow. One of my favorite collaborations was the way I was on a television show called The Nick that aired on Cinemax. That was a Soderbergh show, and it was Clive Owen, turn of the century medicine in New York City, and I just had never seen television or film get made this way because nobody makes it the way Soderbergh does. Soderbergh does the hiring, and then he gives people the space to work. And in the 20 episodes of television that I did for that show, I think I got 3 acting notes from him. But he would maneuver things in a way that just made everything work. You'd show up on set with your props and your costume and your mic ready to go. Nobody had sides. Everyone understood the scene. We understood the direction of the whole show. Like, that was the other thing, is that we got these binders that were 6 inches thick with every episode, which you never get the entire season in a binder. And so my scene partner and I could rehearse the entire season of a television series before we ever even got to set. And so
that's got to be incredible.
It was incredible.
Then you know the whole arc and everything your character is going to go through.
Absolutely. And we could come ready with choices. And the way Soderbergh works is you better have, if you have something big you want to try, you better do it on the first take, because you're only going to get one other take and then we're moving on. He's very quick. He knows what he wants. He knows when he has it. And he's not handing out free takes to people. And we would rehearse it, and he would say, "Okay, show me what you want to do," and which is incredible for a director to even say. He would just let us inhabit the space, move freely, however we wanted to move, and we'd go, "Okay, great. Hand me the camera." He would take his camera, do one rehearsal with the camera, and then we'd shoot it. It was. I just had never, and we shoot all day long. And he has somebody taking all of the 1 or 2 takes and putting them onto a hard drive. And when he gets into the car at the end of the day, they hand him a computer with all of the scenes. He edits all of the scenes before he even gets home. And the next day, if you want to see those scenes, you can see them with temporary music. Any of the Cliff Martinez stuff. And it was an incredible experience. And for everything that I learned on that show, I can't really apply. I can apply very little of it anywhere else because nobody else operates that way. Does that make sense?
It's funny. I that's how I assumed what you would have said, not about who you were influenced by, but I knew that you worked with Soderbergh. And I just could imagine he has his hands in everything. Like he's like, guys, not only did I edit the scenes from yesterday, but I made crab dip for everybody, and it's great. And
everybody knows Steven Soderbergh makes the best crab dip.
The best crab dip.
Not too much mayonnaise.
No, it's perfect, dude. All right, where were we with Tom Waits? All right, so Kathleen turned him on to avant-garde experimental musicians like Captain Beefheart and Harry Parch, which heavily influenced his next career direction. He took his artistic reinvention to Island Records for another 7 albums that further cemented his reputation as one of the most successful cult artists ever. This long-awaited follow-up to his final Island record release, 1993's The Black Rider, was produced and written by Tom and Kathleen. While utilizing his familiar found instruments, various vocal stylings, experimental recording techniques, and sonic freakouts, he also added the textures of a couple DJs into the mix, and this album went on to win the Grammy for Best Contemporary Folk Album. And in 2011, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Neil Young. So that 3 sentences right there, I feel like sums up exactly what's going on in this record. Sonic freak out. He's like playing shit on cardboard box and slamming drawers. It's an album that I expected to be cool, and it did not disappoint. So I can definitely see why you're a huge fan. I'm curious to see what his other music sounds like. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, the early stuff, like you mentioned Old 55 earlier, early on, he sounds like Dylan. He sounds like the man that he loves, a guy delivering heartfelt folk ballads. And then he just, as he, like you were saying, as he starts investigating like avant-garde, abstract soundscapes, he becomes something else, and he gets better. Like, you listen to him singing early on, and it's very clear and very, very high and very Dylan-esque, but it's not. It's a little off key, and it's he actually gets better as he gets older, and as he gets gruffer, and as he gets more, as he freaks out more. It's astounding. This record starts out with Big in Japan, and this record, to me, I listened to it all the way through, front to back, 2 or 3 times in order to really just to remember those feelings. And this record feels like a night out in Chicago that goes way too late, that is full of debauchery and threat of violence, followed by the remorse of the next morning, that when you wake up and you somehow have escaped a hangover and the sun is shining and the birds are chirping, and it goes back and forth like that a couple of times, where there's this like heavy, like you were saying, those soundscapes, that kind of aural freak out, and followed by these beautiful sunrise love ballads. And then you get to What's He Building in there, and it's like one too many nights in a row of this shit, and now you're having a fucking withdrawal dream,
panic attack. You're like,
a heroin withdrawal dream
detox,
about your next door neighbor.
There's a baby on the roof, on the ceiling, like upside down, and the Begbie's over there.
Yeah.
Like, am I in Train Spotting?
And you get
Jesus.
Just like a really. First of all, I really noticed this time listening through, Tom Waits really wants to know what you're doing in your house, why that house is empty, if you'll come over to the house, if he sings a lot about home and about what home looks like and what it feels like, and going there and leaving there and haunting there, and it's I think that's where that cozy feeling, even though it's so like terrifying and dirty and visceral, he talks about home so much that it feels like a warm blanket.
I love that. I love it. Here, let's dive into the record, all right? So you already mentioned it opens with Big in Japan, and in my opinion, this felt a little bit like Tom Waits hip-hop, because I love that it's bookended with these super, super weird noises. Peter, play the opening. He's beatboxing, but to get those beatbox noises, he's banging out rhythm on an old chest of drawers that he had recorded by himself and had saved on his phone for many years. The thing that I thought was the funniest thing about this song was that if you read these lyrics, it's like, I got the style, but not the grace. I got the clothes, but not the face. I got the bread, but not the butter. I got the window, but not the shutter. This is like Ironic by Alanis Morissette. Do you know what I mean? This is like that fucking the cooler version of Alanis' song.
Tom knows exactly who he is in this moment, right? He spent all these years making music to little or no like widespread success, even winning a Grammy in the modern folk category. They don't even televise that category.
No,
you know what I mean?
That's buried.
And so he is the most popular unpopular person in music history. I mean, he's made so many records and has such a huge following, and most of the people I know don't listen to him. You know what I mean? Like and to be the joke of being big in Japan, like to walk around the U.S. and
no one knows who the fuck you
are
are
like,
here. But
who the fuck are you? He's like, don't worry about it. I'm big in Japan.
Yeah, dude.
And he fully is fully aware of who he is and who he's not.
Dude, I'm big in Tulsa. That's pretty fucking good, right? Tulsa's good.
That's right. Yeah.
So I found this this little thing from Tom about being big in Japan. He said it's also kind of a junkyard for entertainment. You can go over there and find people you haven't heard of in 20 years that have moved over there, and they're like gods. Also, people like Clooney are doing commercials here when they don't do them anywhere else. So I get it. I mean, listen, if you're big anywhere, that's fantastic. I mean, being big in Japan is fucking phenomenal.
It's lost in translation.
100% lost in translation.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about being big right now. So you're on This Is Us, and if all of our listeners, the Fleece Army, the Cadougals, if you've been living under a rock, then it's a massive television show. Do you find it tough to continue to challenge yourself and allow your character to live and grow while having this immense, like, This Is Us fan expectations?
I don't think so. I think I have been pushed and challenged by Dan Fogelman, the creator of the show, and the writers of the show. And, you asked about collaboration. This show is highly collaborative by the standards of network television. The writers' room is open to us. The creators are always around. They're on set. The writers are on set. And there's a conversation going on. And that type of back and forth allows us to insert our ideas, the things that we're going through, the things that are happening in our lives. For instance, this last year, my character and his wife had a baby, and in the last year, 13 babies have come into my life through friends and family. 2 sets of twins, 3 different stays in the NICU, home births, hospital births, people being born in cars, like every which way. And one of the things that came up a lot with the men in my life, the friends, the guys, the fathers, was that they weren't feeling this love, this immediate connection, this magic that everyone was telling them they were supposed to be feeling, that oh, you're having a baby, you must be so excited. Well, what do you know what I must or what I must not? It's like, and I went into the writer's room and I was like, that's what I would like to explore with Toby, is not somebody who's just happy to be a dad, but maybe somebody who's struggling with the idea of connecting with their son. And they were able to work that into the story. And so those conversations lead to greater challenges and hopefully more interesting stories. Yeah.
So the actor has this real emotion and everything behind it besides just reading the script and seeing, going, oh, okay, this is what I have to do. So you can help delve into that character.
Absolutely. That's definitely a part of it, a huge part of it. We also have the best writer's room in Hollywood. The people who come through there are just insanely talented. And Dan Fogelman, who runs our show, it's a trickle down from him and his sincerity and his sense of humor and the love that he shows to people. Because on top of everything else, the thing that I think allows people to connect with our show so well is that you're watching people who actually love each other, who actually care about each other, who enjoy being around each other. And in a way, it's a show that knows exactly what it is, and it knows exactly how to tell the story it wants to tell, and it tells it from a place that gives a lot of people a way to connect, whether it's through gender or mental health struggles or weight issues or anxiety issues or sexuality issues. Like, the story is just very, very intricate and dense and kind of overly specific, which ironically leaves a lot of room for people to connect.
All right, right on, dude. All right, cool fact about this song. Primus bassist Les Claypool and guitarist Larry Lalonde played on this song. All right, next one I want to talk about is the second song on the record, Low Side of the Road. All right, inspired by an anecdote about blues legend Leadbelly, who in 1930 pulled out a penknife to defend himself against a gang of white men and got arrested for attempted murder. The nightmares of injustice are further reflected in images in the song, like a horse whipping its rider, a dice rolling a gambler, and beating a dog with a bone. Peter, play a little bit of it.
Jezebel is naked with an axe. The prosecution tells you to relax.
There's so much shit going on. And it's so just at like the speed of like 3 miles an hour. And yet if you really listen to that song, like you can hear so many little intricate noises. It's incredible, man. It's like one of my favorite songs on the record, which surprised me because generally that's not a song that I would like be like, oh yeah, dude, I want to listen to that again. It's like, it's intense. It's dark, you know?
Yeah, there's kind of a symphony of pots and pans, you know, that he puts together, and that song especially almost feels like it's not going to make it.
Yeah,
like that song's really trying to get to the end of the song,
yes.
And we might not get there. And it's a perfect metaphor and a perfect song for where we are right now with everything going on in the Black community and that kind of struggle that no matter what, like that kind of plodding, like we've been doing this for so fucking long. I hope, you know, and Leadbelly for me as a, you know, I guess at that time, you know, in between hearing Tom Waits for the first time and hearing this record again, there was Nirvana's Unplugged album, which is the first time I heard Leadbelly's name spoken when they covered Where Did You Sleep Last Night? And the idea of all of these artists, Nirvana and Leadbelly and Dylan and Tom Waits being connected, and that if you're paying attention to the music and you're involving yourself in it, you're going to learn some things about where we've been, where this country's been, where musicians and artists have been in the past, and how, you know, you look around and not much has changed.
Yeah. You couldn't have said any better. All right, jumping on to the third song, Hold On. So this was the album's only single. This is a love song story about perseverance. To me, it reminds me of Bruce Springsteen. Peter, play the chorus.
You got to hold on. Baby, gotta hold on and take my hand. Standing right here, you gotta hold on.
This song is how I felt waking up in Chicago at the age of 24. You know, just kind of there's redemption in the morning. You know what I mean? You've got these first two songs hit you so hard, big in Japan, and then that kind of slow plod, and then there's this beautiful love ballad.
Yeah, you just gotta hold on that hangover. It's gonna go away. Just have some Pedialyte and have a cheese.
God bless your little crooked heart.
All right, so he wrote this with his wife, and he said, I thought that was a good thing to say in a song. Everything is trying to stay on the ground. Take my hand, stand right here, hold on. So being that This Is Us and a lot of the shit you've done has been so big, and anyone on social media will let you know while crying right after each episode how much they loved your show. How do you find your anonymity? Because you're 6'4", dude. Like, but you stick out. You're not only on a huge, you know, popular TV show, but you're a big dude. Like, you're tall as fuck. 6'4". I'm 5'9", bro.
Yeah, I mean, my anonymity is not that precious to me. I don't have I have a fairly good relationship with being recognized or the people who have viewed things that I've been a part of. But yeah, I stick out wherever I go. And so it's one of those things that I had to kind of come to terms with when This Is Us, because This Is Us is really the thing. Like, first of all, nobody's recognizing me from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. 2, very few people saw the Nick, and so This Is Us is the thing that changed things. And I had to kind of get over my faux humility about it. Oh no, I don't really want to be bothered right now. And my wife Rachel had kind of helped me come to a place of understanding about it. And she was just like, people have had emotional experiences with something that you've created. And if they come across you, they want to let you know that they appreciate that. Sometimes it comes off weird. Sometimes people don't know what to say. But 99% of the time, it is a lovely encounter.
Oh, that's so great. You were talking about how being like, you're like, people start complimenting you and you're like too ashamed. Like, I always like turn into like the elephant man and they're like, you did so good tonight. And I'm just like, don't look at me. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But you have to, you forget that what you're doing, people love. Like, people, whether it's through stand up or acting or this podcast, it's like people feel so connected to us. And it's beautiful. And now I'm able to like be like, oh my God. My problem now is that I try to become friends with them where I'm just like, oh no, we should hang out. And they're like, I just wanted to say hi and I liked you.
Yeah. They're trying to get away. You won't let go of their hands.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, serious. Come on. Would you want my number or my email or anything? I'm like, nah, dude. Just wanted to tell you it was a good show.
I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on my work list.
All right. The next one, Get Behind the Mule. I want to play a little bit about this because this kind of made me laugh. All right, Peter, play the chorus of Get Behind the Mule.
Got to get behind the mule, yeah. In the morning and plow. And get behind the mule. In the morning and plow.
This sounds like something Jason Momoa plays in the background when he throws axes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, dude, this is the coolest fucking shit out there. This is like full on gypsy dancing.
He's got so much swag.
So much swag. And that's the thing I think about Tom that is so cool is this, that, you could sit there and say someone like Paul McCartney is this great songwriter and when he sings blues, he has swag, but then you meet him and he's just this little bubbly guy. But from everything I know about Tom, it's just like, dude, he's just the fucking man.
Yeah, and he seems to live it. I'm sure there's moments where you catch Tom Waits in a plaid pajama bottoms and a pair of slippers, but it's,
you think he's wearing sleeves? You think he's got
what I mean?
pants?
Like he's at some point you can't wear denim and leather your whole life. Chris,
here's the thing. I'm not cutting you off because this is, dude, people like Tom, people like Johnny Depp, people like Slash have to be seen wearing the outfits that we expect of them. Dude, if I saw Slash wearing Lululemon, I would freak out. Do you know what I mean?
Tom Waits has a contract with his audience. He says that I'm going to be this character if you continue to enjoy this character. And I think he is not only a musician and not only a great actor, but an incredible performance artist. If you go down a YouTube rabbit hole of his interviews on television, they are poetry in motion. He is a walking art experiment. His answers are poetry. He says, I grew up on the corner of Bedlam and Mayhem, and he just has these. He has this relationship with the public that is so playful, and you can tell that he is 100% committed and is not taking any of this seriously.
Yeah. All right. So then we get to House Where Nobody Lives. It's about the history of an abandoned house and the past experiences contained within Peter, play 318.
What makes a house grand? Oh, it ain't the roof or the doors.
I mean, for me, this is just hammering in how incredible of a songwriter and how deep of a lyricist that this man is. It is fantastic, that line, you know? If there's love in a house, it's a palace for sure. It's so simple, yet it just needs to be said.
And the way that we all, the things that mean something to us personally, you know, I think the end of that verse, he said, and to me, it's just a house where nobody lives. You know, that house at some point, I'm sure, was filled with people and filled with love, and to somebody, that house, that abandoned house, means something.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was talking to one of my writers, Morty, and he reminded me that you did a podcast with our good friend Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah.
Called In Love, and you guys explored with your guests the dynamics of their relationships.
Yeah, it was, you know, mostly we I think we got 18 to 20 episodes through it. It was mostly couples. Sometimes it was best friends. Sometimes it was individuals. And yeah, we were interested in kind of delving into what makes for positive human interaction. And we would have gone on longer, except we had to either double down or cut and run. And I had just found out that my wife was pregnant with our first child, and he will arrive in a couple of months here. And so I didn't really have
Congrats, brother.
3 or 4 5 hours a week to be going recording podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's sad to see it end, but love Rosie.
But still though, you said 18 to 20 episodes.
Yeah.
So why did that appeal to you, and what was the biggest lesson you learned?
You know, one of the things, the podcast appealed to me because I like talking to Rosie. He has a podcast called Inside of You, where we first had a great conversation, and then he said, "Hey, we should do our own thing." And you know, these days we are so disconnected. We've never been more connected, and we've never been more disconnected all at the same time. And the thing that appealed to me was sitting down with people for 60 minutes to an hour and having a dedicated conversation on a topic. We don't do it anymore. That's kind of why I love podcasts. It's why I like going on them. It's like why I like listening to them, because it's a form of conversation that doesn't happen a lot anymore.
Yeah. Well, what was the biggest lesson that you learned out of talking to all those couples?
You know, the biggest lesson that I've learned has mostly been about rigorous honesty. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about being honest with other people. I'm talking about we can't be honest with other people until we are honest with ourselves about what we need, what we want, what we're feeling, and myself included. Most people, when they're having feelings, have a very hard time even identifying what that feeling is. And so when I say rigorous honesty, I mean like spending the time to investigate myself, what I believe, what I think, what I feel, what I need, what I want, so that I can communicate it clearly to my beautiful wife. I say that in that tone because she's walking by.
That's the soundbite, dude. That's seriously, that exactly what you said right there is the soundbite I'm pulling, because that was fantastic. All right, moving on. Cold Water. This was inspired by folk and blues legend Leadbelly. This is one of several Waits songs about living the life of a hobo outside of society. And in my opinion, Tom went full hobo music. Peter, play 225.
Stepped in the graveyard, it was cool and still. Cool and still, it was cool and still.
I'm just hoping that, I'd read the lyrics and I know this is wrong what I'm about to say, but it's like, it feels like he's talking about Doritos Cool Ranch. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's what it sounds like. It's like, I got some Cool Ranch still. Cool Ranch
Man,
still.
I haven't had a Cool Ranch Dorito in a long time.
Dude, we are sending you a case, bro.
Oh man.
Dude, if you're about to be a dad, we're hooking you up.
Has there
Actually,
ever
we're gonna
has
get you
there,
the mini Cool Ranch.
has there ever been a song that, I mean, if you had any questions about this record being recorded in a barn, you hear that song, I mean, half of these songs sound like he's singing into a coffee can, which he very well may be. Like he's got a big Folgers coffee can up next to the mic, and there's definitely someone with just a pot and a wooden spoon in the back. And
yes.
the audacity the audacity of an artist to take this label's money and to pay somebody a session fee to bang on a pot makes me so happy.
Dude, he employs 90% of the pot bangers in music.
Listen,
you know that, right?
Yeah.
Like the pot bangers union, they love Tom Waits. So like I said, this is full hobo music. When I hear this song, I envision a knapsack on a stick, hitting the rails, sitting around a fire. So with many people having to re-examine their lives and career right now with what's going on with COVID, I wanted to get to the beginning of yours. I want you to tell me the worst audition you ever had.
The worst audition I ever had was for Trey Anastasio's Broadway show. He wrote all the music for a Broadway musical called Hands on a Hard Body. And it was based on a true story about one of these contests where at the local car dealer, you come and you put your hand on the truck, and whoever can keep their hand on the truck the longest wins the truck.
Yeah.
Odd topic for a Broadway musical, but Trey Anastasio, what else is he going to write?
I was hoping it was going to be like, fish, come on, everybody, we're fish. We're playing for 6 hours straight.
Yeah, just roller skates and, yeah. And I got in there and I was like perfect for this show. Blue collar, beard, big, bluesy. And I stood next to the piano and they started playing the song and I started singing 100% off key. Not a single note on key. And it was the first time in my life where I stopped. About 8 bars in, I was like, you know what? I don't know what's going on right now. I'm going to stop and start over because that was terrible. And I opened, as a joke, I opened the top of the piano because I was singing and I was standing 3 feet from the fucking piano and I couldn't hear it. And so I, as a joke, like opened the top of it. It was one of those upright pianos, thinking that I'd be able to hear it more. Started singing again. Still, this never happened to me. I couldn't find a note. And Trey Anastasio is sitting there with a whole table full of people, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and I finished the song, did my scene, nailed the scene. And walked out going, I'll never see any of you ever again. Have a good one.
Oh, that's fucking
It was
brutal.
embarrassing.
Can you sing? Are you like a trained singer at all? Like, or is this just something you're like, I guess I could do it?
Oh, no, absolutely. I've been singing for a long time. I did 3 Broadway shows. The
just weren't feeling it that day.
My ears weren't working. I couldn't figure it out. It was very embarrassing. But yeah, no, I've been singing my whole life. I put out a record back in 2014 in New York, and just finished recording a new record with Dawes frontman Taylor Goldsmith, producing and writing. Joseph the Spouse is the name I perform under. And it's I started writing again, and Taylor and I actually we became friends through This Is Us. He's married to Mandy Moore, and one day I was writing a song and it was 100% a John Prine song. I was like, this is the most John Prine-iest John Prine song I've ever written, and I sent him the first verse and a little demo of me playing it. And I said, you want to write a John Prine song? And he said, absolutely. And he sent me a verse back. And then I sent him half a chorus, and he finished the chorus. And we went back and forth, and literally 50-50 over text message wrote a John Prine song called Deaf Ears that was kind of what started our songwriting partnership.
Dude, you guys were like Postal Service.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, remember that band?
Yeah,
That's what they did.
absolutely.
That's incredible. Well, it's funny that you're talking about building a song, because the next song I want to talk about, you ready for this segue?
Yep.
What's he building? So this was inspired by Beat era voiceover artist Ken Nordine. This chronicles a noisy neighbor's observations as they escalate from innocent mistrust to full-blown absurd paranoia. And in my opinion, it is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. Peter, play a little taste.
There's poison underneath the sink, of course. There's also enough formaldehyde to choke a horse. What's he building in there?
Oh, God. All right, that's enough. It's creeping the shit out of me, dude. I'm having a bad trip right now, dude. But you know what's funny? It's like I talk about how I'm like, this song kind of creeps me out. It's you know, it's right in the middle of the record, and maybe this is like his palate cleanser to bring us into the next song.
Yeah, I think it's that fever dream, man. One too many nights out, and he starts. I think. Obviously, it's inspired. I think I had heard him in an interview talk about this. He was trying to make this into a song, and it just wasn't working until finally he just was like, "Let me just read these lyrics." And
because there's no melody, Chris. There's no melody.
We'll get the pot. We'll get the pot bangers back in here, and get the pot bangers union back in, and we'll get it all fixed.
The pot bangers union, the jug blowers that like. That big jug thing.
But he genuinely gives you a sense of dread and a sense of like foreboding, and you're like, it feels like the song is going to come out of your headphones and kill you. It's amazing. So
Tom explained this song as, we seem to be compelled to perceive our neighbors through the keyhole. So Tom Waits is actually named Peeping Tom Waits because it's a little creepy. I didn't know that he was a voyeur. The way I figured out this question is one of my creative producer and former guest on the show, my buddy Avery Pearson, is obsessed with the show The Americans, and you played a Russian operative. So this is the question he wanted me to ask you. How does a guy from Sacramento get cast as a Russian spy?
Yeah, so the as a testament to my accent in that show, he was a German assassin, and I got the audition, and they were just like, just whatever accents you can do, and I was like, okay, and I was able to do a pretty good French accent, I do a great Irish accent, okay, British. I was like, Russian I can do, and I did 4 or 5 different accents in this audition, none of which were German. And later that day, my agent called and said, "You got the job. They want you to play it German." And I said, that wasn't one of the voices that I did. And I was like, and they're like, and you're due on set tomorrow at 8 a.m. And so I immediately called a dialect coach who I had worked with in one of the Broadway shows I was in. And I was like, I just need you. Here's the script. I need you, and he'll do this for $150.
Yeah.
Here's the script. Can you read these lines with a German accent, record them, and send them back to me, please? And just overnight, I was just listening to the sounds, and so I came in to the on set, and I was it was something like the Germans kind of, can I buy you a drink? And the director, cut. Can you pitch it up a little bit? And I was like, yeah, I could pitch it up a little bit, but the one thing that I wanted to avoid was sounding like the butterfly from A Bug's Life, or Dieter from Now's the time in Sprockets when we dance. Like I was like, that's what I have to avoid because I desperately want to do that. And I started with this low accent, and he kept going, "Can you make it a little higher? Can you make it a little higher?" And by the end of it, I'm very much like, "Oh, hello. Very good to see you. welcome to my hotel room. Now's the time when I will explode you.
Cut, that's perfect,
yeah,
Chris.
cut.
Oh,
Perfect. Great. They almost blew my arm off in that show.
Really?
There was a big shootout scene at the end, and I was supposed to get shot in the arm and the wrist. And the explosives guy, instead of putting a little bullet hole explosive here, put a bomb explosive on my wrist. And we're doing this shootout scene, and it's little snaps, pop, 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 pop. And they go, now, don't forget, when this goes off, throw your hand back. Like, oh, I've been shot in the arm. That scene in Saving Private Ryan where the bomb explodes next to the guy and it goes, ooh, and everything goes quiet. That's what the rest of the scene was for me. I look down and the sleeve of my long sleeve shirt is gone and my entire lower forearm is covered in blood. Thank God 95% of it was stage blood, but I had to go to the emergency room. I thought they had broken my arm.
Oh my God!
Through the leather bracelet and the metal protector, the explosive had cut a circle into my wrist. It was crazy. Do
you have a scar from it still?
No, I did for a while, and it seems to have healed up. But yeah, it was insane.
Avery is going to be so happy when he listens to this, and we talked about that. So that was for you, Abe, wherever you are. All right, let's jump to Chocolate Jesus. This was one of your favorites. So this secular hymn was recorded outside with a rooster crowing throughout and a fantastic blues harp solo by the legendary Charlie Musselwhite. Peter, play a little bit. So why do you connect with this one so much?
First of all, it sounds like he got the whole band in a coffee can this time. And there's just, it's sonically it lives almost, even the bass lives in treble. The whole thing is high end.
Yeah.
And there was something when I first heard it, I went to a Catholic high school. I grew up in the Methodist Church. I went to a Catholic university. And although I wasn't terribly, I wasn't hardcore religious or anything, I had just been around it my whole life. And so it might have been the first time I had heard something kind of intentionally, intellectually sacrilegious or something poking a little bit of fun at that kind of faith.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as a 19, 20-year-old, it's exactly what I wanted to hear.
So that's funny that you said that, because this is about an immaculate confection. So to Tom, this was more like a version of a chocolate Easter bunny. As Tom said, someone might think it's blasphemous, but it's actually kind of a grassroots spirituality. So I think it's a good little take on that. All right, moving on. Filipino box spring hog, Peter, kick it.
Round steak Mikado with grape sandwich. Old brown belly with a yellow wig. Taint the mincemeat filigree.
This is my jam.
Yeah, watching you dance to this song made this one of my favorite songs on the record, bro.
That's my hype song. Like, that is the song. If I need to get going, I put that song on as loud as I can. I was doing a play in Chicago at the Goodman Theater, and it was a Eugene O'Neill play called The Hairy Ape, and it was this like angry, violent rage against the proletariat class and the wealthy class and all these things, and we would crank that fucking song and stomp our feet and beat our chests and get all sweaty and go out on stage. There's half of that song is a recipe on how to barbecue a pig. It's you gotta slap that hog, roll him over twice. Baste them with a sweeping broom.
Put the marinade and the glaze on it.
It is a one of a kind song. There's nothing else like it.
It's one of my favorite songs of all time.
I wish he had a cooking show on the Food Network. Tonight we're gonna do some chicken marsala. Gotta get the wine and cut the garlic up. God, I love singing like him.
Amazing. I don't know if it's a real thing, but I picture like a box spring with all that shit burnt out, and they've got fire underneath it, and they've taken half a pig and spread it out because they didn't have a grill big enough to grill this thing, and they have to cook it on a box spring and baste it, with a broom. Like, it's violent.
Dude, it's that hobo life, bro. This is that hobo lifestyle. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Jason
it's in a
Momoa,
train yard.
Axe music. This is Axe music. But this is about a band of misfits, a bunch of freaky characters doing a feast at a junkyard. So we're talking about bands and misfits. How did you put together Sully and the Benevolent Folk?
So that was a musical experiment back in New York. That was that record I released. I in order to challenge myself while I was doing my first Broadway play, which was only 2 hours of work a day, I started writing music, and I wrote a song a day for 30 days. So I would start in the morning with lyrics, then I would take this microphone and this computer and go to my dressing room with a ukulele. I just bought this ukulele and I wanted to learn how to play it. And I would put it to music, record it on GarageBand, and post it on Facebook every day. And when I ran out of ideas, I would say, all right, well, what does it sound like to write a song for Tom Waits? What does it sound like to write a song for John Prine? What does it sound like to write a song for, whoever? And I would write in their style, sometimes with their voice, and I came out with a couple of Tom Waits tunes after that record. But the Benevolent Folk essentially was when we would play around New York. The very first show we played, there were 25 musicians, over the course of the evening, playing all kinds of weird shit. And as we would play other shows, obviously all those people can't come. But it was this ever rotating group of people. It was like, but tonight we only have guitar, accordion, and bass. So that's the show tonight. Or we don't, the piano player can play, and we have a banjo player, and that's it. So it was this kind of ever rotating group of New York musicians who would gather at whatever club we were at and play these songs. I ended up writing like 34 days in a row, 34 songs, narrowed it down to like 10, recorded a record. When we played around, man, it was a good time.
That's great. All right, and then the final song on the record is "Come On Up to the House." Peter, play the first verse.
Well, the moon is broken and the sky is cracked. Come on up to the house.
The moon is broken and the sky is cracked. Come on up to the house. The whole record is about coming home, trying to figure out what home is, where you're going. The terrible trip to get there, like leaving home, the hobo life, riding trains, living in a junkyard, and finally he ends the record with just come home. Just come on home.
Little known fact that we found was that he actually had moved out of his house right before he started writing this record because he had a termite infestation. So every song is about him waiting to get. I'm just making that up. But how dope would that be?
Getting his house tinted.
Yeah, he's got water bugs. All right. So this song is basically
what are they killing in there?
He's like, what is this bug on here?
They're scratching in the walls.
So this is basically, he ends the album with a gospel hymn, or what you could call a funeral march, and this is basically an encouraging and compassionate offer of relief from this weary world. So we touched on it a moment ago, where you had mentioned what's currently going down with everything, all the injustices in the world that I, myself, and many others are protesting against for equal rights. How have you navigated these waters recently, and how have you been able to maintain like a Zen state?
I haven't. I have been very, very angry, and I've been very sad, and that
is where I have to live. That is where I have to start, right? With everything going on, we all have a responsibility to take care of each other, and we haven't been doing that for hundreds of years. And there's an idea that we want to help, and some of us want to help, and we don't know how. And I think that the first step for me, what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks on top of speaking out and saying the words Black Lives Matter and making donations to organizations that are fighting these fights, is I've been educating myself. I've been listening and watching and trying to understand as best as I possibly can, and I never will understand it fully, the Black experience, the suffering that's been going on, because I consider myself a loving, non-racist person. I don't think I have been living an anti-racist life. I have not put my feelings into action. And before I can change my actions, before I can change my feelings, my beliefs, I have to challenge my mind in the way that I think. And that starts with a reprogramming, and that starts with a lot of information. So I've been taking in a lot of information. And if anyone is looking for information, there's a post on my Instagram account called the All Lives Matter Challenge, because I had such a problem with people responding to Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter that I needed to talk to them about it. And I found a link. Mandy Moore actually posted this link that is a list of resources, anti-racist resources for white people. If you want to educate yourself, if you want to change the way you think, if you want to challenge yourself, there's an entire list of resources there to do that.
Trust me, I completely agree with what you're saying. Once you post something and you have a fan base and people just want to throw up All Lives Matter or try to go against like this, and you just want to like shake them and be like, how the fuck do you not get it?
Yeah.
You know,
it dilutes the conversation, and it creates a lack of focus that is unhelpful. I don't believe that if you are posting those things that it makes you a racist person. I think it just makes you you just don't understand what's going on and what's being said. And you know, the only way to growth is through pain. The only way through change is through some kind of friction. And we've been pushing against it for a long time. And if we allow our minds to be challenged and we allow our hearts to be opened, then there's so much room right now for so much change.
Yeah. Also, if just for all the listeners out there, I know we talk about it at the beginning of the podcast, but we have on the 500 website, my producer Jeremiah put all the links to ways you can donate, ways you can help, information. So help as best as you can. All right, you want to do some facts and get out of here?
Let's do it.
Go, come on up to the facts.
To the house.
For the facts and the facts. All right, here we go. After regretting doing a voiceover for a dog food commercial in 1981, Tom swore he'd never allow his songs in any advertising. He said, "It has always been my belief that anything that degrades the value of the work degrades the artist." So he listened to you. He actually, though, sued Frito-Lay over a commercial where they did an impression of him. They ended up paying him more than $2 million. The impression was so good that Tom Waits thought he recorded it for them in a drunken stupor.
$2 million is way more than he would have gotten paid to do the job.
For sure. So what's the dumbest thing you've done, Hammered?
Well, there was a bonfire on a beach. And I thought I'd stoke the bonfire with a little bit of gasoline. And the bonfire jumped through the stream of gasoline back into the gas can that I was holding. Now, luckily for me, gas is very flammable, but it is not highly combustible. I didn't quite know that at the time, so I did a full-blown 1980s run across the beach and dive into the sand, thinking explosion was imminent, turning around only to see a fountain of fire coming out of the nozzle of the gas can. Well, I ran back up to this plastic gas can and kicked it into the lake where the plastic shell began to melt, creating a lake of fire. And so my friend and I decided that we would dance around it and swim underneath it. And yeah, I'm glad I don't drink anymore, Josh, is the point.
Dude,
the point is things are a lot clearer now, and life is a lot better.
All right. So Tom went into acting and did multiple roles for Francis Ford Coppola, one of them being Renfield in Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1902, where he played a servant to Dracula. It was kind of weird. So my question to you is, what's the weirdest role you had to play?
The weirdest role that I've had to play so far has got to be Taserface in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I mean, to be dressed up in full space alien makeup the first time you meet Sylvester Stallone is just an odd experience. It's a weird. Yeah.
What's up, Taserface?
Here's the crazy part. This man, I don't know if he does his research or whatever, but he also came on This Is Us. He walked right into the hair and makeup trailer and goes, "Hey, it's Taserface."
Yeah, he did.
How would he have known? He doesn't know. Incredible. But yeah, I mean, that was just a bizarre experience to beat the shit out of Michael Rooker in a football field sized spaceship in a warehouse in Atlanta.
That's perfect. All right. So last fact, Tom was born the day after the death of one of his heroes, blues legend Leadbelly. So I would ask you this: who is one of your heroes who died before your time?
I felt over the years a real connection to John Lennon and his life, his music, obviously in and out of the Beatles, and the things that he did, with his life on top of his music, were always kind of profound and loving to me. So probably John Lennon.
I mean, it's a toss-up between him and George. They're between who I think were the best. And I love Paul, too. And I can't shit on Ringo. I cannot shit on him. But it's like, it's definitely just such an incredible human being. Much like Tom Waits. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just a complete and utter artist. And I got to say this, Chris. This was so much fun, dude.
Dude, I had a great time.
Thank you so much for coming on, brother. The one and only Chris Sullivan, everybody. If you're looking for him on social media, on Instagram, he's at Sullivan Grams. On Twitter, he's at Sullivan Tweet. And check out his band on Instagram at Joseph the Spouse. And make sure you watch the new season of This Is Us. Go back, watch the Nick. All of it's good, guys. Now, we just listened to Tom Waits from 1999. Our music director, Little Matty Penfield, picked Mark Langan. If you're a fan of Tom Waits, then you have to know about Mark Lanigan. He began his music career as a singer in the Seattle grunge band Screaming Trees. He's gone on to play with Queens of the Stone Age. He's one half of the Gutter Twins with Greg Dooley of Afghan Wigs. And you can check out his new album, Straight Songs of Sorrow. It came out in May. Check out the slow-burning track, Ketamine. Oh, you know I love that shit. And you can stream that song on Spotify. Find the link on our website, 500podcast.com. And if you're in a band and you want your music featured on the 500 website because you were influenced by one of these albums or artists, I want you to send me the music, 500podcast@gmail.com. Next week, it's Van Halen week as we go through their 1978 debut album, Van Halen. Ooh, y'all been waiting for this one. Y'all got some homework to do. Listen to the album on Spotify. Stay fleecy and Dougal to the true Dougal Dougals.